Naomi came from a very poor background, a kind of poverty that clung to the skin like dust. Her mother sold food on the streets, crouched over boiling pots in the early morning chill. Her hands always blistered from steam and oil, her voice hoarse from calling out daily specials to people who barely looked her in the eye. Her father was a carpenter with calloused fingers and sunburned arms, taking on whatever odd jobs he could, fixing broken stools, patching roofs, standing doors for half the price they were worth because dignity doesn't fill the empty stomachs. Naomi was the eldest of 4 siblings, 4 hungry mouths, 4 fragile hopes. She was never a child in that house, just a small woman carrying responsibilities too heavy for her age. If her mother was out selling stew and stripe, Naomi was at home nursing her baby brother while helping the others with homework. She learned to boil water before she could even spell the word boil. The walls of their house were thin. Winters were brutal. Some nights, Naomi studied wrapped in 3 jackets. Her lips cracked from cold and hunger, reading through torn textbooks by the light of a flickering candle. The electricity would run out, sometimes for weeks, and yet she never missed a test, never failed an exam, because failure wasn't just hers, it would belong to the entire family. When she passed matric, it was the kind of celebration that involved neighbors banging pots and plastic plates. A miracle in a township that had forgotten how to dream. But university, well, that was a very different kind of hell. Naomi managed to get in through a bursary, but it wasn't an easy thing for her. It was not luck, but blood and board and breakdowns day and night. She had to queue at the NSAFS offices like a beggar. Her application almost denied because her documents were soaked in rain during a storm she had walked through. She wrote motivational essays while shivering under a leaking roof. And even when she got the scholarship, the suffering didn't end. It only changed its shape. She couldn't afford to live near a campus. She stayed in a crowded flat with 4 other girls, shared a bed with a stranger for 6 months, and sometimes ate nothing but dry bread for dinner. During exams, she would wake up dizzy from hunger, her mind barely holding on to formulas and theories. The laptop she used was borrowed and had a cracked screen. Sometimes she would spend the night outside the library just to steal Wi-Fi through a window. Still, she endured, not because she was brave, but because she had no choice. Graduation day came and Naomi didn't have money to buy new clothes. She wore a second-hand dress and borrowed shoes, 2 sizes too small. But she walked across that stage with her chin up, tears burning her eyes, not from pride, but from exhaustion. Her name was called. She smiled for the photo, and the very next day, the world forgot about her. She had a degree and had no job, no callback, and no chance. She had graduated years ago and had never been lucky enough to find work. After years of searching, Naomi finally decided to move to a town called Gauteng to look for a job. She had graduated years ago and had never been lucky enough to find work. She was always on social media following her ex-classmates, and it made her heart bleed because most of them were doing very well while she was stuck in one place. What made matters worse was the fact that Naomi was her family's only hope. She had been the first one to pass matric and also the first and only one to graduate. So the family relied on her to change their home situation. But sadly, things weren't going how they had hoped. It felt like God was blocking his ears from their prayers. Life was just getting harder and harder. Naomi watched her family lose hope and faith in her, and that was very painful because, honestly, she had been their light, and now she was failing to brighten their lives. One day, as Naomi sat at home, she grabbed her phone and started scrolling through social media. On social media, there was this particular girl Naomi had gone to school with. Her name was Ruth. But Ruth had never graduated. She had actually failed until she was excluded and she never seemed bothered by it. She left school and now she was living the life they all wished for. She drove big cars, wore designer clothes, and went on expensive vacations every single month. She had even bought her little brother a car for his 21st birthday and renovated her parents' house. Our home had been a child-headed one because both of her parents had passed away, so she had a stay-in helper for her younger siblings. Her siblings attended multiracial schools. Life was definitely giving her lemonade after all the lemons that had been thrown her way. She and Naomi had been a bit close in varsity before Ruth was excluded. They would hang out every now and then. It was clear even then that Ruth was never interested in school. She used to love doing Naomi's hair, and most times when she came to her room, she would come with nail polishes and little beauty kits just so they could keep themselves busy while chatting. She had loved the glam life, and she was a definite girly girl. Ruth had a very beautiful and attractive sense of dressing. But once anyone started talking about books, she was gone. She would make excuses like she had forgotten to check up on her younger siblings who were living with her relatives at the time, or she'd say, "Let me go call them quickly," and she would never come back. Other times, when books came out, she would jump up and run, saying she had forgotten to switch off the stove, and just like that, she'd be gone. She always had so many excuses that eventually Naomi had made peace with it. Sometimes, when she just wanted to be alone or sleep and Ruth was in her room, Naomi would simply take out her books, knowing Ruth would leave, and then she could rest. But that very same Ruth was now living the life Naomi had studied so hard to achieve, while those who studied were suffering. Naomi would react to all of Ruth's posts until one day she saw a post saying Ruth was selling perfumes and looking for people interested in selling and making money. The caption was very interesting and it was attractive. It said something about being your own boss and making a lot of money. Naomi assumed that that must have been how Ruth was making her money, and she immediately sent her DM. Ruth replied right away. It was funny though, because Ruth didn't recognize her. In fact, Naomi didn't think Ruth even knew her real name. She used to call her Four Eyes because she wore spectacles. As Ruth explained the business to Naomi and showed her the available packages, Naomi realized that Ruth genuinely did not recognize her. So Naomi decided to reintroduce herself using the nickname that Ruth would remember. And boy, Ruth was not thrown back. They finally exchanged numbers, and Ruth called with so much excitement. They had a very warm conversation. Naomi told Ruth her life story, and Ruth felt very bad for Naomi, and she decided to help her. Ruth tried to cheer Naomi up and told her that everything was going to be okay. Then Ruth finally decided to tell Naomi to come and meet her at her home ASAP. Naomi was so excited because in her mind they were going to sell perfumes and finally change her home situation. It was the day that Naomi was supposed to meet Ruth, and boy, she was so excited and she wore the best clothes that she had in her closet. When she visited Ruth, Naomi was shocked how big Ruth's house was. She never thought it would be that big and luxurious, but something felt off about the beautiful house. It was too quiet and the atmosphere felt very heavy. Ruth asked Naomi not to take pictures using flash inside the apartment and also asked her to keep her phone on silent at all times. No vibrations, no ringing out loud. Ruth acted very weird in her own house, like someone obeying another person's rules. She wasn't her bubbly, loud self inside the house. Even the TV and music had to be played very low, almost whisper quiet. She was a totally different person when she was inside and outside the house. Ruth lived in a very beautiful estate in the east of Johannesburg. Naomi stayed there for a week, and one day Ruth told her to let her know as soon as her period started so she could take her somewhere. Well, Naomi thought that this was very weird, but she trusted her friend and she was just like, maybe there's just something that she wants to advise me on. Naomi's periods were on their way, so she waited a week, then informed Ruth. Ruth then said, "Don't bathe or put on lotions, perfumes, even roll-on. I'm taking you somewhere tonight, and the place wants your natural scent, nothing else." It was really shocking to Naomi, but when you look up to someone, you hardly ask any questions. You just want to be like them. They inspire you. That night, Ruth gave Naomi a black pad and a black dress that looked like a hospital gown. Ruth wore the same gown. "Don't put on shoes," Ruth said. "Let's live barefoot, and please don't ask questions. I'll explain everything once you see the results." The girls drove to a large building. At first, Naomi couldn't tell what it was, only that it was brightly lit. Once inside, she realized it was a mortuary. In the reception area, there were about 8 young women dressed exactly like them, sitting quietly like they were waiting for something. Ruth went to the desk and told the receptionist, "I've brought the new member I spoke to you about a few weeks ago." The receptionist walked towards Naomi with a glass of water and a very black pill. She was told to drink it. Naomi looked at her friend. Ruth nodded, so she just drank it. It seemed everyone else had done the same. Each held a glass of water, half empty like hers. After drinking the pill, Naomi became incredibly aroused, and at the same time, she felt dizzy and weak. The girls were then taken to a very cold room with fresh corpses. By fresh, Naomi realized the bodies had just arrived. A very beautiful woman walked around, injecting the corpses, and as soon as they were injected, they got erections. Everyone became excited. Naomi joined them. She couldn't help herself. They helped themselves on the corpses. It was so satisfying, something Naomi had never experienced before. Never had she thought intimacy could be so enjoyable while on her period. It was something that really shocked her. About 30 minutes later, the air in the mortuary shifted, cold, still, and heavy, as an old woman in grey robes appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were pale, almost blind, but her presence was sharp. Without a word, she beckoned. The girls rose like shadows, following her through a dim corridor lit only by flickering overhead lights. She had led them into a silent room. The walls were tiled white, but the air reeked of metal and something ancient. There, the old woman pointed to steel beds lined up in rows. "Lie down," she said flatly. Naomi obeyed her. Her heart pounding, she lay down. So did the others. One by one, their legs were parted. The old woman moved between them, slow but steady, holding a strange silver tool and a dark bow. Naomi flinched as the woman scooped something from inside her, a warm mix of blood, fluids, and something else Naomi couldn't name. It was very painful, violating, and cold. She wasn't told what it was for. She only guessed. Their orgasms, their menstrual blood, their essence. When it was done, the woman whispered the final instructions. "Don't speak to anyone. Don't bathe for 3 days. And whatever you do, don't look back when you leave this place." Naomi walked out with trembling legs. Her body ached. Her head was foggy, but Ruth was waiting at the reception, standing exactly where Naomi had last seen her. She was motionless, calm, like she'd done this 100 times before, and it was nothing that worried her. She did not speak to Naomi. When Ruth saw Naomi, she just started heading out, knowing very well that Naomi would follow her. They finally got outside. Not a single word on the drive back. The engine hummed, but the car felt silent. Ruth did not even look at her. For the next 3 days, Naomi stayed locked in the guest room of Ruth's house. Alone, no one came in, no one called. She felt like time itself had paused, but deep down inside, something was waking up in her, something she couldn't understand. She wasn't afraid. In fact, she felt bold, braver than ever. It was as if a voice inside her had whispered, "You are no longer weak, and you are no longer the same." On the 4th day, Ruth returned. She walked in holding a small black handbag bulging with money. Notes, so many notes. She placed it on the bed and said, "For being brave and obedient, this is yours." Then she handed Naomi a towel. "Go take a bath. We are giving you a makeover tonight. We're going out to make real money." Naomi didn't ask a single question. She didn't even feel like herself anymore. After bathing, Ruth gave her a full body outfit, a tight dress, a sleek wig, sharp stilettos, and a makeup kit. When Naomi looked herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the girl staring back. She looked deadly gorgeous, very dangerous. That same night, they went out to a club. Not just any club. This place glowed. The chandeliers looked like dripping gold. The booths were velvet. The air smelled of cigars and dark perfume. And the men, they were not ordinary men. They wore tailored suits, gold watches, and eyes that had seen dark things. As soon as Naomi walked in, they swarmed her. Men couldn't even keep their hands off of her. She smiled and she let them touch her however they wanted to. And in the corners of the room, she saw them, the girls from the mortuary. They were beautiful, flawless. You'd never even know they had just done what they did. You'd never guess that their bodies had been offered up in silence to cold, lifeless flesh. That night, Naomi ended up in a hotel room with one of the men. He was strange but rich. The next morning, she woke up and found a transfer alert on her phone. She was shocked at the amount of money she had received just one night. That man transferred $20,000 just for a night, and that was it. That was the beginning. She had entered the Slay Queen life and she loved it. Her life turned into something out of a dream. She finally bought her family groceries, paid their bills, got them out of debt. She even bought herself a small car and rented a pretty house in a very gated urban area. When her parents called, she told them she was now a manager at a very big perfume company. But the dream came with rules. Naomi was supposed to return to the mortuary every single month. She was supposed to offer herself again and again. For a while, Naomi did what she was required of her to do until her soul began to ache. Eventually, Naomi got tired and she stopped going. That's when the shadows started appearing. At first, they were small movements in the corners of the house. Then she started seeing figures, men gathering in a circle in her bedroom, whispering without mouths. Their outlines flickered like candlelight. They never came too close, but they were watching her. They were growing in number. Naomi finally got scared and she decided to call Ruth again and again, but Ruth never answered her call. The last time they spoke, Ruth's voice had sounded cold, distant, like it was echoing through a tunnel. "You disobeyed the queen," she had said. "Now you will face your punishment." And just like that, Ruth was gone. Naomi tried to return to the mortuary, desperate to fix whatever she had broken, but she could never find it. Every room turned wrong. Every landmark had vanished. Once, she ended up in a cemetery, staring at nameless graves. And the men, they were still in her house, watching, waiting. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't breathe, and she didn't even know how to stop it. And this is Naomi's story. Even up to now, she is still being haunted by these figures in her house that she cannot even understand. If anyone knows what kind of ritual this was, if anyone can help her undo it, if there is a pastor around who can pray for her, please, she is struggling more than words can say. And the shadows are getting closer. Naomi's story is terrifying, not just because of the supernatural horror, but because it started with something deeply human: desperation. She came from poverty. She carried her family's hopes. She did everything right. She worked hard, got educated, stayed disciplined, but life still shut its doors in her face. And when a door finally opened, even if it felt strange, she stepped through it because hunger makes monsters look like saviors. This story teaches us something painful but very real. Not every opportunity is a blessing. Some are traps dressed in gold. Ruth's glamorous life was not built on perfume sales. It was built on a ritual of silence, blood, and sacrifice. A world where beauty was currency and obedience came at the price of the soul. The cost of disobedience, well, isolation, terror, and emptiness. And to anyone watching this video, please be careful who you envy. What glitters on social media might be a mask for horror. Not every mansion is clean. Not every boss babe made her money through legal work. If someone offers you worth that seems too easy, too quick, too secret, ask questions. Trust your gut and walk away. And to those who may have already walked into something they can't explain, don't suffer in silence. Seek help spiritually, emotionally, and professionally. There are people who specialize in cleansing, counseling, and comforting dark spiritual bonds. You are not alone. God is always with you. God is able to break everything, every curse. Just trust in Him and go to a trusted pastor who you think might help pray with you. Let Naomi's story be more than a horror tale. Let it be a warning. Some riches don't need candles, and some demons wear lipstick, and sometimes the cost of silence is everything.